I'm Cam Best, and I am joined by the mayor of Value Town, the legend Trump. And we are two players who are joined by two oddities of fate. And the first is that both of us have been the highest ranked player in Marvel Snap before. During the beta, we both held that honor. And the second is both of us have gone through the experience of having the person that you're named after become a political flashing point, right?
That
For
is
those
a
who don't
really
ask,
specific thing that we share. That's awesome.
it is very specific. Those of you who are unaware, my name, Cam Best, it means absolutely nothing. People ask what the K and the M stand for, and it means nothing. It doesn't mean anything. And what it actually came from is because my name used to be Kanye Best. And for obvious reasons, I was like, oh, I need to change that. I am joined by a man who I can only describe as braver than me, because he did not change his name at all. Not one time. He did not change it at all. He is still Trump. He is still going at it. And I have a Guess the Cards challenge for him that is tailored to the last time he touched this game, because he has played Marvel Snap before, but hopefully he'll be just as bad at evaluating these new cards as all of us were. So, Trump, what's your experience with Marvel Snap?
Cool. Well, as we talked about before, I played a lot of Marvel Snap when it was even in Friends and Family beta. So that's how I rapidly became the best player of Snap for
Yeah.
a limited time, like back in before it was public, and then also in the initial parts where I popularized decks such as the best deck, where it was like Double Dinosaur back before it was nerfed, and then all the other good cards.
Yeah. Yeah, Nova Carnage. That was you. You
Carnage
invented
too.
the best deck. Yeah, you invented it.
They had to nerf like 6 of the cards in that deck.
Yeah, they did. I missed that deck. It was so sick. RIP +2 Nova. That was the dream. So because of that, you also came back to Marvel Snap, I believe, to carry Nina in Twitch Rivals. Please tag her. And that experience gave you like a close-up of what I believe was a metagame focused primarily on like the move mid-range deck, things like that. You remember what was good about that time as well. And then you just never touched the game again, correct?
Yes, that's right. So that tournament was about 3 months ago, where I managed to, I think I went, I won all 3 of the, whatever it's called, the tournament matches.
Yeah.
Where you do the 10 health thing, and I survived with a score of, I think it was 23 health.
Woo! Damn. That is a pretty big diff. Hopefully we will get you we'll give you a little bit of a harder challenge than Twitch Rivals apparently was. We're going to jump right into it because you know everything about Marvel Snap, you know how it works. I don't have to explain any of it. You can just tell me if these cards are good or bad. This is Martyr, Marvel Snap's newest card. At the end of the game, she moves to a location that loses you the game, but she is a 1/4.
Wow. So I know that there's a card called Zero, and it goes with like Red Skull type decks, and I know that there's some sort of meme where Snap keeps nerfing Red Skull. So that's about the context where I go with this card. Let's see. I can see it would be pretty good in decks that tried to fill out the entire board, but I don't know how likely that is. Seems like the payoff is, I would expect like a 1/3 to be good. So it's like you're getting 1 more power for the potential to be a dead card. Seems really bad.
Yeah, no, this is a really bad card. It's generally agreed upon to be like the least good use of tokens they've released in a while. I compared it to like other famously bad cards. Like this is a card that I don't actually know how much familiarity with the Marvel Snap card acquisition system you have, because if you only came back to play Rivals, they gave you a stocked account. So I don't even know if you know what tokens means.
But I do know what tokens are. I briefly I played for just a little bit after the tokens came out, and I briefly thought about spending them all on Galactus.
Okay, that's remarkable. All right, so we have correct answer number 1. Martyr, very bad card. You have correctly analyzed that. I've seen people play it, sort of, but I will say the fact that it's such a new card because of the way card acquisition works, it's like, all right, all these new cards are not really going to be investigated until they are easy to acquire. And so the fact that like a card that's even a mid card is generally not worth purchasing, and a card that's like actively bad is like, okay, well, that's terrible. There is just nothing we can do about that. It is very upsetting.
Yeah, good thing we're reviewing the card here so you don't spend however many tokens you do on this one. Holy cow.
Yeah.
The payoff is so small for that, drawback.
It is even if the payoff was good, right? It's tough. I
think if it had more, like, you can always make a drawback good enough if you make the numbers high enough.
What do you think this would have to have numbers wise for it to be good?
I was thinking like maybe 6.
If this is like a 1/6, yeah. No, that makes sense.
Might even be OP at 6, so I could see why 4 is the number. I was surprised to see only 4, like 5 maybe.
Yeah, 4 is low because like 5 you compare it to something like Titania, which also might be past your time, but it's like another similar like 1/5 downside type thing. And it's like, why is this smaller? Its downside is so much larger. This is X23. When it's discarded or destroyed, regenerated at a random location, and you get +1 energy. Now, if any of these cards are not past your time, just let me know. I'll just move to the next one. But this one, I believe, should have just come out around the time Rivals came out, and was not exactly explored at that time, if I recall correctly. It was not something that like a lot of people had.
Yes, I know this card just because it came out, like you said, around the time of Rivals. So
yeah.
Nina and I did talk about whether or not we thought this card was good. Not that it really mattered that much because Rivals was where we built unique decks.
Yeah.
I think I did. Around that time, I considered it mid in the sense that I had built destroy decks just to try them out and see whether or not they wanted to be, and then see whether or not I even wanted X23 in it, and it didn't seem like I did. So it looked good, but I don't think this card's actually good.
So here's one where you're actually just dead wrong on it. This card is a destroy staple. It is, and that came out. The reason I put this on here is because that came out at the end of Rivals, basically. When Moyen won Rivals, he was talking about like the decks that he had, the decks that were good for the format, all of that. And he was like, people are really underrating Deadpool because X23 makes that deck legitimately great. And since X23 has come out, Deadpool has been like a meta deck consistently. It's been a meta deck because of this card coming out. And it like that is like a very, I think, surprising development because like, yeah, at the time you're like building destroy decks and you're like, well, this isn't even that good. But this letting you play a 6-drop and Deadpool on 7 is super busted. You end up in like these incredibly advantageous scenarios because you play like Null and then a giant Deadpool or whatever, and you no longer have to be so reliant on Taskmaster. Or you can go like a Zola on your giant thing and a Deadpool, things like that. You can also, of course, the traditional one is you let this play Null on 5 and then Zola the Null on 6, so your Nulls double in power and you get 2 of them. That's the other thing that it gets to do. So this one, this one's actually a very good card. I would say it's probably like the card we wish most cards were, in the sense that like it's a specific archetype booster, but it's really good in that archetype, and it's usually worth buying if you like that archetype. Werewolf by Night. This is a 3/3. After you play an on-reveal card at another location, move there and gain +2 power. Might not look like it, but this is one of the longest text boxes in Marvel Snap, I think. It's a lot of words.
Interesting. This one must have come out after Rivals.
It did.
After you play an on-reveal card at another location, move there and gain 2 power. Huh, if I remember my move deck, it didn't have that many on-reveals. So this wouldn't necessarily fit into that. It would be for some sort of new archetype, which is cool. I love cards that push new archetypes. It's definitely the type of card that I could see you build a deck around. I'm gonna say that, like, it's the type of card that you clearly have to build the deck around, and hard to say whether it's good or not without like seeing the entire deck. But it looks powerful enough to like build a deck around, so I'll say it's good.
Yeah, nailed it. This is a bounce deck card. Like this is probably, I would say, one of the 5 strongest cards in the entire game right now. I think if you ask most players, they'd agree on that. exactly correct analysis. You do have to build a deck around it, but it turns out it's actually just very easy to do that with a bunch of powerful 1-cost cards, Falcon and Beast. You repeat those 1-drops. This guy is like a 320 or whatever. It's
20.
a very,
wow.
very big guy. Yeah, he's a card that I think a lot of people are like, can we get this guy like cropped down a couple power or something? But I think he's also just sort of fundamentally like more balanced than other previous cards that have been super OP because he's just one big guy in one lane. And so, like, one big guy is cool, but eminently answerable, whereas, like, a bunch of power spread across lanes is a lot harder to answer, paradoxically.
That's cool. And here I was thinking about, instead of the on-reveal angle, that you actually have the, like, Craven angle, where, he moves in and Craven gets buffed. Is that also a thing?
Very rarely. Like, there's maybe one deck that has ever really done that. The issue is this guy needs empty space so much.
Right.
Because he can't move in if there's like multiple things there. So Craven doesn't ever actually get that big. You go Craven is the first slot, you pull him in on the second slot, you pull him out, you pull him back in, suddenly the lane's filled up, your Craven is 6, and it's like, okay, was that really worth all the effort you put in? And so like that's why he doesn't tend to go with Craven very well. He's just like a giant idiot. That's his role.
Cool. Love it when new cards come out and make new decks, and hopefully they aren't too busted.
Well, I'll leave the audience to judge that one for themselves. This is Gladiator. 3/7, another long text box. Adds a card from your opponent's deck to their side of the location, but if it has less power, it just gets blown up.
Wow. A card from your opponent's deck to their side. And obviously the downside is if it has more power than...
Yes, it's just...
Yeah. Huh. Well, 7 seems like a pretty large number. It seems like that would destroy a number of the opponent's cards, in which case that usually doesn't matter because it would just be in their deck anyways. So the way I'd see it is it'd basically be a 3/7, which is solid. There might be some decks that can benefit from destroying an opponent's card, and if you kill their combo piece, you get the snap. I remember the good old days where we thought about putting in, what is it, that 1/2 for 1, which killed Yondu?
Yondu, yes.
Yeah.
No, you're talking about back in the day, we would put cables in so we could cable their, like, Nova, right? So
yeah,
they wouldn't be able to
snap
combo
them
off.
when you get their key card.
Yeah.
I think the cards have gotten better so that you don't need to get those cards in. So I guess for the same reason, this reminds me of Yondu, really. It's good stats for the cost, unlike Yondu. But sometimes it fails a lot. I'm gonna say it's bad.
Yeah, you're pretty much on it in terms of the analysis. That's basically what everyone did, is like, oh, this is just like big Yondu, and Yondu is not very good. I will say this is a like reasonable to find card in a deck that's already gonna like fill up its opponent's lanes. So like I've done a video on, and I only really do videos on stuff that's like legitimately good and legitimately playable. A deck with this guy in it, but he was like a very replaceable piece of it. And so it's I think on balance I would say that your analysis of this card is correct. It's like not a very good card. It's another card that suffers from like what we talked about with Martyr though, which is like they expect you to pay 6,000 tokens for this. And it's like even if it was pretty good, it still wouldn't be worth 6,000 tokens. And since it's not pretty good, it ends up just being very underexplored for the most part. But also it's not pretty good. So, it's one of those, it's a catch-22.
Got it. The payoff is basically having 1 or 2 extra power for filling your opponent's side, which is meh.
Yeah, it's not ideal, right? Like you just play like Polaris and it's like probably better or the same. This one is going to be a lot of reading. This is the actual longest text box in the entire game because it's actually 7 text boxes. So bear with me.
Yeah. Well, she looks cool.
This is a card that does a lot of stuff, but only actually does one stuff, unfortunately. So we have Nico Minoru. On reveal, after you play your next card, cast a spell. So basically what she has is consistently changing on reveals. Every turn she gets a new one, and you have to like pick the right one for the situation, basically. So the first one is it turns your next card into a demon, which is the 1/6 that comes off of the hood. It just turns it into that. The next one is you play your next card, it dies, but you get to draw 2 cards.
Wow, so far these two seem really strong.
Well, the next one is you can move a card to the right, so reverse Iron Fist.
Okay.
And after you play your next card, give it +2 power. A little bit of a forge thing going on there.
We're like 3 for 4 on good stuff.
Yeah. This one's Scarlet Witch. After you play your next card, replace that card's location.
Okay.
And after you play your next card, add a copy of it to your hand.
Oh, I love Sentinel.
Yeah. Chat mentioned Trump's favorite card is Sentinel. All right.
That's
After
right.
you play your next card, double this card's power. And I'm gonna make this a mini game. All right. I want you to tell me how good this card is, and then tell me what the 3 best.
The draw 2. Oh, I thought it was gonna be the best one. It's clearly the draw 2.
No. Tell me the 3 best.
The best 3. Okay. On reveal, after you play your next card, cast a spell. So how do you know what spell you're gonna get? Like
Her text changes. Like you can just click her. It shows
so
up. There's also like some visual indicators on.
In your hand, Nico is gonna say like on reveal, do this, right?
Yes.
Which
In
is
your
one of
hand,
those
she'll have
seven.
the text of each of the spells. Yeah.
Okay. And that ability holds even the next turn, right? You don't have to do it the same turn.
No, it changes every turn.
No, I mean when you play Nico.
Yeah. Like so, if you play her as the last card in your turn, it'll still have the same ability it did when you played her. Yes.
Okay, and it only goes off once, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, seems quite good given that on a glance about 5 of those looked good, and what is it? And you can just wait for one of those 5. Like, seems really good. This might be one of the best cards I've ever seen.
Yeah, no, all of that is true. Yes. She is a very, very powerful card. You remember I talked about like how there's like these bounce decks. She's one of the reasons like bouncing her, getting her multiple times is extremely good. She's a toolbox card. She does a lot of the stuff that you want to do. I was gonna ask you to name the 3 best. And you already named 1, so give me 2 more.
All right, can you flip through them again real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we have Demon.
That one seems really good.
Draw 2.
That one seems really good. No.
Move to the right. +2 power.
Average.
Scarlet Witch.
Pretty easy.
Add a copy to your hand.
Interesting.
And double her power.
The way this card works as most copies, right? Where if you played something really strong, like cheating wise, you get the super strong cheating wise in your hand.
Correct.
Wow. Okay. Well, I know the top 4. You got that copy one, the draw 2 when destroyed. You got the first one past this.
The demon.
Yeah, the demon seems good, and then the change of location. It's probably not the top 3, but I can see that it would be really good every once in a while.
So the one I was hoping would trip you up was the copy. Because yes, the 3 you listed are exactly phenomenal. Yeah, like that is exactly it. I will say the change of location ends up being useful a lot less than I thought it would. It's nice to have it there, but like you very rarely get it. But yeah, the demon, the draw 2, and the copy are all ridiculous and all used to great effect in a variety of these situations. So yes, exactly correct. Next up, we have Alioth. 6/3. On reveal, destroy all enemy cards played here this turn.
So I don't remember if I know this card just because did this come out after Rivals or was this before?
I want to say it was out before, but it was nerfed.
Okay, I know that at one point
it might have been out after, but I think it's out after, but it was nerfed. So I will tell you that much.
Interesting. I know that this card was complained about enough that I heard of it.
Okay.
Let's see. Destroy all enemy cards played here this turn, including unrevealed cards. So it reminds me a lot of Leader, in the sense that you get an additional power, and then you if you're ahead, then you always win that particular spot. It's less good than Leader because it's only in this location, which I heard Leader got nerfed to as well.
Oh, do you want to see new Leader? We'll show you new Leader after this.
I think what I would expect is that it just copies in the same lane, in which case it would be similar to this. But Let's see. Destroy all enemy cards played here this turn. So basically, the way I see it is it locks down a lane in your favor for 6 mana. Um, this one seems okay, but not exciting. It was probably much better beforehand.
Okay, you're not going to believe this. The nerf just made it a 6-3 that instead of a 6-5, and it's exactly as good as it was previously. Like people still complain about this all the time. People hate it, hate it, hate it, hate it, hate it. Arguably the most hated card in the entire game of Marvel Snap. It is a little bit worse than the degree of hate it receives. Like I will fully admit that, but it is still, I would say, maybe alongside Doctor Doom, the single best 6-cost card in the entire game. In terms of cards you actually want to play. Like, we're not counting America Chavez for draw thinning. Like, cards that actually see play, that you play on the board. This guy is number one in terms of, I would say he's probably number one in terms of, like, 6-cost cards. The
That
best.
surprises me because the setup is pretty specific. You have to win 2 lanes, and then you have to have like one of the lanes locked down enough that you can play this. But I guess that exists.
It does pretty much exist, yeah. Like, so even outside of that context, like, for example, I play him in like some Darkhawk type stuff where I just want like a 6-drop that maybe just wins me the game. Like, if you're just ahead enough already, you can usually just be like, look, they're gonna play this here, and Alioth ends up winning me the game. There are like some, like, you know, Storm Professor X type decks that run him, but he is played outside of those as well. Like, that's like the surprising bit to me, because you look at him and you're like, I don't really get it. And I think that's the correct, like, you look at him and it's like, yeah, that's kind of what I think too. But then you play him and it's just like, oh, I get it. This is cheating. This is like actually really unfair, because so many games of Marvel Snap come down to, you know, we're both fighting over this specific lane, and he just ends those games immediately.
Okay. Here I was about to comment, you could just play the Hulk. But I guess this one's a little bit better.
Yeah, so, like, the thing about the Hulk, even after, like, High Evo, is, like, even if the Hulk would win a lane, they still have, like, basically a pretty decent shot at Alioth in your Hulk. Like, even if it's a 50-50, that's still a 50-50, right? Like, so, even if you have 2 places to play it, they are always in the game with this card, basically. So that's sort of how Alioth works.
Okay.
Chat is comparing your Hulk strategy to Boulder Fist Ogre. So there you go.
I guess I should have imagined that, given that leader was so similar.
Yeah, so this is what, I'll just take a digression here. This is what current leader looks like. This is current leader. This is what he does now. On reveal, copy the enemy cards with the highest power played this turn, but on your side.
Okay, so this is instead of all the cards, it's just the highest power.
Yes.
Oh, that's quite a lot worse. Yeah, that seems terrible now.
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, so, like, Alioth is the, like, guy that wins when you have prio visual.
Oh, my poor leader. Holy cow. The power even got nerfed? Wasn't it 4?
Oh, man, you missed so many. Okay, so leader was a 6-4 that copied all the cards. Then he got nerfed to a 6-2 that copied all the cards. Right. Then he got nerfed to a 6-7 that copied the cards in the lane to the right of him.
Oh, interesting.
And then he got brought back to 6-2 with this text. So there's kind of been a saga with leader here. He's gone through a lot of different phases, I would say. Next up is Black Knight. After you discard a card, add the Ebony Blade to your hand with that card's power. Now, this is the Ebony Blade. It's a 4-0, but, like, you discard the Infinite, it's a 4-20, right? Like, that's
a good combo.
What this guy is basically there to do. So, Do you think that is a good card?
Add the Ebony after you discard a card. So you'd have to have the Black Knight out first, right?
Correct. It has to be on the board for it to work.
Add the Ebony's Blade to your hand with that card's power. Interesting, and you can still bring back the Infinite if you were to discard it with, like, the Rider card. Ghost Rider.
Yes. Yeah.
That seems like a deck. I'll say it's good.
Okay, it is a deck, but it's not very good. It is actually a deck. Like, there are going to be people, they're rare, who play Black Knight Ghost Rider. I think I would even go so far as to say it's kind of an underrated deck. But the issue that it has is mostly that you are forced to play out your big guy pretty regularly, right? You can't just like throw priority and play it later all the time, because either the Ghost Rider or the Ebony Blade, you can't play them both on the same turn unless you have like a Sarah or something, or a Zabu or whatever. And so most of the time you end up just putting a big guy in the lane and being like, this is going to win me the lane. And then your big guy like gets Shang-Chi'd, and it's just like, yes, my entire plan just got thrown out of the window. And so for that reason, even when you get like your little 420 Ebony Blade, it's like, okay, I guess I still die here all the time. And you put your opponent in a position where like they know if you're gonna die or not, which gives them all the snap equity. It has like awkward positioning issues like that.
Interesting. Well, there's where you play X29 and you get the 7 mana turn on the last turn.
But you need 8.
You need 8?
It's 4 plus 4. Oh yeah, Ghost Rider costs 4 now. Oh my god. Yes, yeah, Ghost Rider costs 4 now. Yeah. I guess that's just like, okay, I probably should have covered that, right? Like, because yeah, Ghost Rider got nerfed. I just assumed that you were like caught up to September 2023, but Ghost Rider 4-3 now. Another new card. We're here to throw new cards at you and make you understand them immediately. Man Thing. Ongoing.
Wow.
Yeah, 1, 2, and 3 cost cards here have -2 power, 4/5.
I don't know if you play Hearthstone. This reminds me of a lot of mossy horror.
Okay, so is that the like 2? It was like a 2 and then had a big butt and blew up all the small stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly this thing. It looks like this even looks like a mossy horror. So that's cool. Let's see. 1, 2, and 3. So this is like the hate card against brood decks and against squirrels and stuff. And I guess you can even give them rocks, and those are 1 cost, right? Let's see here. I mean, looks like you put this in the rock deck. I don't know how good the rock deck is, but seems like you would put it into a rock deck. I would say that the rock deck would probably not be it would be like average at most. I'll say it's average.
Yeah, I think that's an appropriate rating for it. But this is like one of those things where like you got the correct answer through like the entirely incorrect means, which is like,
okay,
the rock deck is terrible. Debris is not a thing that people are really playing a lot of. It's not very good. But
hey, maybe they're just messing up. Maybe they're not fiddling it right.
Maybe. It has these issues. Like, the issue with the rock deck is mainly that the more you invest in the rock stuff, the more you lose to like your opponent playing Carnage, right? And so it's just like, I've invested in clogging your board, except now I just turned the clogs into power. And like I said, Deadpool has been a pretty decent part of the meta recently, so it ends up in like a pretty awkward spot if you're the rock deck, if you ever run into that matchup. And we generally trying to avoid like pure unwinnables tends to be pretty valuable here. And that is pretty close to a pure unwinnable. This card's actually seen the most play in like Zabu decks. It is just like people are playing it just like it's like this is gonna be like a 4/11. It's just a guy with a bunch of stats, and it's gonna be pretty big. And that's actually like where it's very average, because there's a lot of competition for those slots of guy with a bunch of stats, obviously. And so like you also kind of have to end up running Luke Cage if you want him to be good. Just a little bit. I would say he is average, maybe a little bit below average in most current contexts. He's basically hasn't been seen for a while, but he was seen, fairly recently. He was played. That is sort of where he's at right now. He's not great, but he's not like, your opponent is playing Man Thing and you're like, oh, this guy's an idiot. It's like, oh, that's a fine thing to play. It's just probably not the best.
Okay, cool.
Here's a different take on this. Annihilus. Your cards with 0 or less power switch sides. Destroy the ones that can't.
Oh no, you just told me the rock deck sucked. Let's see. So this is the card you put into the rock deck. And
what if he's not played in the rock deck?
0 or less power. Obviously you put this into the rock deck unless like everyone's playing the Green Goblin and Hobgoblin. I don't really see any other place that you would put it. Given that you gave away that the rock deck sucks, I'll have to say that this card sucks. But I would have thought that this would have been a cool addition to the rock deck, and I would have played it.
It's good, but like you don't play it in the full rock deck. You just like go small ball with it, right? So like this is actually a good card. You just play it with like the Hood and Sentry. And that's it. That's the whole package. There's no rocks involved at all. It's just like you're turning your Sentry into like a 420 and you're turning the Hood into like a 1/9. And like that's it. That's just enough. It's like totally fine to do that. You just like clog your opponent a little bit, and it's not as bad against the destroy decks as like a fully invested rock deck because you're playing this guy on 5, and that's when the destroy decks want to not be playing Carnage and whatnot. They want to be doing that stuff early. So like
whatever
when you
this
send your
Sentry
stuff
card
over,
is, it sounds really insane.
oh, you don't know Sentry? Oh my god! Wait, no, you that was definitely a card that existed when you played Twitch Rivals. That was a card that existed when you played Twitch Rivals. So Sentry is this guy.
Yeah, add a -10 power void to the right location. Interesting.
Yeah, so he's a 4/10 that adds a -10, and then you just Annihilus the -10 over to them.
Yeah,
And
seems good. I guess you would put Viper in this deck too, right?
I actually don't, personally. I feel like investing too heavily in this package is a way to get blown out by like Carnage or whatever. So I usually use either Annihilus as my way to get rid of the void, or I fill up the lane. And I tend to find that a little bit more reliable. There are people who play Viper, but I don't think she's actually good enough outside of that situation for her to actually be included in the deck. Viper's like a weirdly bad card, I feel like.
Interesting. As the type of player who enjoys griefing the opponent, this card speaks to me. You know, the rocks and the Viper.
Yes.
And
the fact that you were going to spend all your tokens on Galactus. It all adds up to a very specific type of player, yes. This is Uatu the Watcher, who now activates from anywhere. He works in your deck. He works in your hand. No matter where he is, you get to see the right location.
Wow, I'm glad that they changed him, because the old one was like such a cool idea. This one is still a cool idea, but that is still bad.
Not even like just a solid 10 seconds. It's like, yeah, no, you're all exactly correct. It is still bad. It is absolutely still bad. Not very good.
Even if it showed you all the locations, it would still sadly be bad, which I guess would just be the middle and the right one.
Just no analysis. Just like, yeah, this card sucks. 100% correct. Absolutely.
It's like the info is cool, but 1/2. Sad.
Yeah, you're paying like a real cost for the info. There's a lot of cards like that where it's like, yeah, the info is cool if you get it for free, but you're not getting it for free. You're playing a 1/2. Anyway, you crushed through that. GG next. Doctor Strange is now a 2/3.
Oh, wasn't that a 3/2 or something before?
This is a 3/3, yeah.
3/3. Okay, that's pretty good buff. If I remember right, the thing that you really want to move highest power wise is something like the torch so that it doubles again. When I played in Twitch Rivals, that wasn't being played, and I was a little curious as to why. And I figured it was probably because of all the big minion hate or big. What do we even call these things? Big units?
You call them whatever you want.
Cards,
dudes,
dudes,
guys, yeah.
Did this get changed? It was after Twitch Rivals, surely.
Correct.
Because it sure looks good here. Seems like it would be a staple of a movement deck, and it's just a question of how good a movement deck is. So
right.
Yeah,
so how good do you think that is? How good do you think a movement deck is?
Let's see.
Now, see, I feel like I got to cut you off here, right? Because you already said it was good, and then I asked that question, and then you laughed, which means you picked up on what was happening there, which is, yeah, no, move isn't very good. Like that's pretty much where it's at. He definitely did get buffed, but the type of move deck that actually would be good is like the sort of, I believe you should be familiar with this from Twitch Rivals, though, the one like the mid-range one with like Silk and
yeah, that's the card I played,
stuff.
the deck I played,
right?
Rather.
Absolutely, he doesn't really go in that because that's a deck full of stuff that's like self-contained, and that's like the one that would be relevant if it weren't for like some other metagame developments, basically. It's a good deck at going under Shang-Chi, things like that. It's pretty like I honestly wish that deck was still around legitimately, because the things that hold it down are quite annoying. But he doesn't go in that, and actual move decks, there are a couple other things that happen to them that sort of means that, you know, this guy is just not the kind of card that sees a ton of top level play now, unfortunately, even though he got the buff. And I do think that buff makes him a much better card in move decks. They just still aren't there. There's a lot of like sub-theme move decks running around right now. Werewolf by Night, like we talked about the Craven stuff earlier. Like there's move sub-themes, but there's no deck where moving your thing around is actually what you're doing on purpose.
Just you wait until the next card comes out and it's movement based. It'll be Doctor Strange's time.
It'll be time for the Strange. So here's a card you definitely remember.
Yeah.
But she's very different now. Wave is now a 3/5, and she's not restricting your opponent at all. All she's doing is setting all cards that cost more than 4 to 4. So she's effectively just ramping now. That's what she's no longer like the wave you remember, the legendary Death Wave.
Right. Holy cow. And she even got buffed to 5 power.
Yeah.
This card seems insane. Like, that's how I mostly used Wave when I was playing. I liked ramping to a 6 card. I guess the question is how good the general 6 cards are. They seem to have very few just big stats for the cost. But they probably exist. I'll say, I mean, looks great.
That's interesting. So for the most part, those decks don't exist right now, actually. That is the role that she has, but like for the most part, she has gone from, I would say, people would probably like a top 5 card in the game to a very niche player and a very niche deck. Now the metagame right now is like uniquely hostile to those sort of ramp decks for reasons that I actually feel like I'm gonna explain them to you, because I'm not gonna have you rate the card. Because I assumed that you would have just been online enough to know that this card is dumb, and that is Loki. I assume that you would have heard about that card.
No, I actually have not.
Wow, that's crazy. Because Alioth percolated to you, so I was like, all right, we can't ask him about Loki. That's the one card that he would have seen people complaining about.
All right, let's see Loki.
On reveal, replace your hand with cards from your opponent's starting deck. Give them -1 cost.
Interesting. I look at that card and I'm like, wait, that was OP?
Yeah.
Place your hand with cards from your opponent's starting deck. Oh, does it take them from their deck? So you draw them?
No, you just get copies.
Oh, you get copies. I see. Interesting. That would have been a good one to trick me with if this was too OP. It didn't look too good. I mean, it seemed fine.
Okay, so like you remember the Collector, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this guy with the Collector. You just get like a giant idiot. Every single one of them is a Collector trigger.
Oh, and I don't think I quite understood that you get to replace all of them. Yes. I see.
So every single card in your hand turns into a Collector trigger. And then also you get you get to just sort of like play your opponent's deck for cheaper. So the specific reason why the wave decks get held down by this is because they spend their turn sort of sacrificing in order to ramp, right? You do things like Electro into Sandman into, 6/6, right? Or, your wave into whatever. And then Loki is just like playing a normal game. They play the Collector, they play Loki. They get your big guys. You have invested in your Sandman or whatever. They get a handful of your big guys. They play your big guys already being ahead. And so it puts that whole archetype in a chokehold, basically. Because it's a tempo deck that, because your deck is built to maximize Sandman stuff, you always end up in these situations where they do your end game, but they were already ahead.
I should have figured that, given that this is the type of card that I myself would have played a lot. What was the nerfed?
It used to cost 3.
Holy cow.
It's
I mean, does the Loki deck play Sentinel? Is it time?
Yes.
Yes! Holy cow!
Yes, it does.
Yes, this would totally go with my Sentinel.
Yes, no, like it's weirdly, that's another thing we share. which is that I have also been a Sentinel truther for a very long time. Like, I am a big believer in Sentinel. Like, I like draw cards. It's card advantage. You get a card. So we got that too. Yes, absolutely. But yeah, no, like my current Loki deck does absolutely play Sentinel. I was playing it today before we recorded this. Absolutely. 100%.
OP.
Strong guy. Now he's a 3/3 though.
Oh, it used to be a 2/3. Interesting.
Well, he used to be a 2/3 and then they made him a 4/3. So
yeah, so used to be a 2/3 with the potential of being a 2/9, if I remember right. And now it's a okay. I didn't think old strong guy was necessarily that good, so this one is probably also not good. I'm surprised it had to get nerfed, which indicates that it, to 4, which indicates it was really good. But
it was
surprising. Given that you have to play a pretty specific deck where you run out of cards.
Yeah,
I can't imagine this one's good now, given the metagame that I've kind of absorbed from you.
Yeah, no, this was absolutely a great card. This card at 2/3 was like super, super powerful, especially in those early game zoo or early pool zoo type strategies where he would just be like an enormous idiot, right? Now, though, they nerfed him to 4/4 and he was totally unplayable. So they were like, all right, we're going to make him a 3/3 and see if he gets any more playable. And he's absolutely still totally unplayable. Yeah, just absolutely terrible. Just a worse werewolf by night in almost every circumstance.
That's interesting. I would even, well, obviously I don't know the meta, but I'd go as far as to say that it seemed like it would be fine as a 2/3 now.
I think if it were a 2/3, it might be fine. It would be kind of annoying for early game players though to have something that's like that outsized at that sort of range.
Yeah, you could just move it to the third pull or something.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know if they're ever interested in doing that, but yeah, like it was very strong as a 2/3 back in the day, but now I do wonder if it's possible to make it a 2/3 again. I got one that was definitely changed recently, and this is Negasonic Teenage Warhead. When you played, I don't even know if you noticed this card existed for Twitch Rivals, but she used to blow herself up along with the enemy card, and now she does not. That is the change that would have happened between Twitch Rivals and now.
Okay.
She also used to have 3 more power.
Oh, it used to be a 3/5. I see.
Yeah.
Interesting. After an enemy card is played here, destroy it. I take it this means you have to have initiative?
Yes. If you want your opponent's card to die, they will still get an honor reveal effect. But once it is played, it will die.
Got it. And well, this is interesting. The old one had the same exact text.
Plus it blew itself up.
Right. It reminds me a lot of like a face-up counterspell type card. Pretty interesting. Oh, seems good to me. Damn.
Yeah. See, like, this is like almost a trick question because I actually think she's pretty good, but the change was so recent and nobody has her, so she hasn't really had a chance to like super shine. That said, she is not a card that a lot of people respect right now. I think if I'm going by the book, I would have to say that it's incorrect to say she's good, but I honestly, in my heart of hearts, believe that she's pretty underplayed. Like, I think this is like a card that is actually kind of decent. And so, like, when someone plays it against me, like, it can put me in bad situations. It's a really good card in, like, Cerebro 2, in as much as Cerebro 2 exists. Like, this is a really powerful thing for it to be doing. Like, I don't necessarily think she's bad. And so I feel like I kind of have to give this a scratch because I'm with you. I think she's just underplayed. And like this is actually a card that is pretty exciting. That would be my read on it. I just don't think she's amazing.
So the main difference between this and Alioth is that Alioth works even if you go second, right?
Yeah, Alioth will blow up whatever happens no matter what. Actually, there's some awkward interactions between her and Alioth because Alioth's honor reveal just blows her up. And so she dies and then her effect doesn't happen to the Alioth because of the way honor reveals are ordered. So like that is one of the things that is holding her back right now, I would say. And I would honestly also say if Alioth didn't exist, this card becomes a much higher priority because she is then the only way of doing that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it is obviously not as powerful as Alioth, but it costs half as much. You guys are sleeping. This might be an OP card.
All right, you heard it here first. You're sleeping on Negasonic Teenage Warhead.
That's right. It's not me that's wrong. It's everyone else that's
It's
wrong.
everyone else. It's everybody else. Blade's different now. On reveal, discard the rightmost card from your hand.
It's instead of a random card, if I remember right.
Correct. It used to be just discard a card.
Okay, well, that's definitely better than random. Seems like a staple in a discard deck, and up to the meta to decide how good the meta discard deck is.
Correct. This is a staple in a discard deck. It is like by comparison, like we talked about how Doctor Strange would be a staple in a certain type of move deck. Blade is a staple in almost every type of discard deck. Whether you are doing the Ghost Rider, Black Knight type thing, whether you are doing the traditional Apocalypse thing, this guy is in it. This guy is the guy that does that. He is a staple for sure. He is very, very good at his job, and he is very, very widely used across multiple different archetypes under the same umbrella.
You're the man, Blade. Even works with Strong Guy.
Okay, yes, he would be in that deck, but also no one plays that deck.
I think that used to exist. That did used to exist. Blade and Strong Guy.
Yeah, it would be your little zoo finisher combo, right? You'd go like Khazar into Blue Marble and then spam.
Yeah,
the
which I
Blade
didn't
Strong
actually
Guy.
think was that good, which is why I'm a little surprised Strong Guy got nerfed.
How far into the pool were you, right? Did you, because one of the things I remember was one of the big imbalances back in the day was if you unlocked Killmonger, because he was pool 3 at the time, and if you unlocked Killmonger, you just sort of started instantly winning all those games. And if you didn't unlock Killmonger for a while, you were kind of screwed in those like Dynova mirrors.
I see. Yeah. I guess I was playing in the meta where there were still cards that were better than Strong Guy, and then when those got nerfed, Strong Guy got moved up.
That is more or less what happened, right? Like Dinah was a 3-3 at the time, Moon Girl was a 3-3 at the time, or Dinah was a 3-0. Like, that was a dumb meta. That was such a dumb meta. I got a card that was nerfed and then buffed, I believe, or maybe she's actually only ever been buffed. Black Widow is now a 2/1, but the Widow's Bite is now -1 instead of 0.
Okay, did she used to be 1 mana?
No. She used to be this, I think, but the Widow's Bite was a 0/0 instead of a 0 negative.
Oh, okay. Well, I know that for a very, very long time, Black Widow wasn't played, and to only make the Widow's Bite 1 more, that can't really have changed things. I'm surprised when she got buffed and then nerfed.
No, I got that backwards. She's only ever been buffed. This is just a buff, right? She went from the Widow's Bite got a -1 power.
Yeah, whatever.
Really? Okay, because that one's a whiff. Black Widow's amazing now. Yeah, like she's like an incredible, amazing card right now. For like, I honestly I struggle to explain it, but basically most of it is that she's a really good partner with Werewolf by Night on reveal that disrupts your opponent, right? And then you're already playing this bounce stuff. So if you ever beast her, it's like, oh my god, they're actually straight up losing 2 draws. And they're losing 2 board spots to Black Widow, Widow's Bites, and those are bad for them now. Like, I don't exactly know, but I think if I had to guess, the biggest difference is when you play her on 2, they have to play out the Widow's Bite, which means they are now losing a location. And that sort of priority helps you move forward in your game plan, I think. But honestly, I think it's also that the metagame, because of Loki, wants you to be specialized around these early scaling threats, like Werewolf by Night, because when Loki copies them, they won't be that big, but yours will be that big because you're investing in it on the board, right? And so she partners very well with Werewolf by Night and that whole package, and that's why she's good now, is basically my read.
That's pretty interesting. I had known about bounce decks, and I don't think Black Widow, when I was playing, was even a consideration in these bounce decks, but it seems like a good card to bounce, so It's like maybe people
It's
just figured it out given time.
I really do think that adding effectively an extra power to her was a really big deal. Like,
Okay, yep.
they effectively doubled her power, and so now there's more incentive to bounce her, right? Because you doubled her power, and now you're doubling that again when you bounce her. You get another -1 thing on the board. You're taking up more board spaces. And I think also it's that because there's a lot of werewolf, right? We talked about how werewolf requires board slots. Attacking board slots and draw at the same time is really good in those werewolf mirrors.
Okay.
So that's pretty much why she tends to see play. Also, of course, she goes with Darkhawk, the card that gets bigger. The more cards are in your opponent's deck, they stop drawing cards. It's good for that, right? But honestly, I think you'd play her, and I have played her even outside of those Darkhawk ones. Like, she is really good right now. I'd say she's a card that I'm higher on than most people are, but she is so good.
That's cool. I haven't played a game with Darkhawk, though I know what it does. So that makes sense that Darkhawk would make people think more about Black Widow.
Yeah, I think that's where people first realized it was like a hybrid between the Darkhawk deck and the Bounce deck. It was like, okay, Black Widow is awesome. And then it got to the point where it's like, okay, Black Widow is awesome, period. Not because of the Darkhawk stuff, just this card is really good.
Mm-hmm.
Elsa Bloodstone. If you play another card to fill a location, give it +2 power. 2/2.
Interesting. That's a new card.
Yes, it is.
So my first instinct is, the best that you could do is +6 power if you filled 3 locations, but you could like theoretically bounce them. If you play another card to fill location, give it +2 power. It seems like if you were to fill 2 locations, this card would be good stats for the cost. I'll say she seems good in a number of decks that try to fill locations or bounce the last card.
I think that's basically an accurate rating. So she used to be the best card in the game and say +3. And when she said +3, it was like, oh my god, this is like, you play it and it's a 2/14. Like, you would get like between like stuff like Nightcrawler or whatever, just like there are a couple other cards like Nightcrawler now, and so you like, that's the thing that fills it up. You move it out, you get another one, you play like Nightcrawler and Vision, and it's like, okay, you're suddenly getting an inordinate amount of stats out of this card. But she recently fell out of the meta because of that nerf. They basically chopped like a lot of power off of her to the point that it's no longer necessarily worth investing in her. She is still pretty okay, right? Like, she's still a card you can do, but she's no longer top meta level material. She's like pretty good, but not like, Werewolf by Night level good.
Got it. Well, seems, yeah, I could see how the good old classic player Angela, player Elsa, player Nightcrawler seems like a good solid strategy.
So, about that.
Oh no.
About that. I didn't plan to show you this, but I guess I will.
Did they kill Angela finally?
Well, that's up to you to determine, my friend. I will not answer you one way or the other. You are gonna have to tell me.
Okay, it used to be a 2/1, right? And +2?
She's gone through many balance iterations. I believe when they nerfed her, it was from 2/0 +2.
Okay. So, let's see. Comparing that with a 2/0 +2, you would play like 3 cards, and that would be a 2/6. This after you play 3 cards is 5. Obviously, you always try to cheat extra slots. 2, 5. This is probably like just right on the border of where she's good for poor people, but still not. Like, maybe she falls off.
Yeah, no, that's basically it. Yes. Yeah, she is totally unplayable in high level play, but if you are in pool 1, you will still probably play Angela some of the time. Yes, like that is basically the exact way I would describe it. That's well done. Ravonna Renslayer. 2/1 ongoing. Your cards with 1 or less power cost 1 less.
Minimum 1. cards with 1 or less power. Cost 1 less. 1 or less.
So 1 or less is like, for example, Darkhawk would count as 1 or less because it's a 4/0 until it gets the ongoing ability. Goblins would count as 1 or less because they're negative. Things along those lines.
That's pretty interesting. So I used to play Mr. Negative a lot, so I feel like I have a decent understanding of what 1 or less power. Yeah, that's yes, 1 or less power type cards. I'm kind of
Wait,
familiar.
hold on. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What do you remember Mr. Negative's stat line being?
I think he definitely got changed. But I know the first version was like a 4/4 for 4.
Right. So guess what it is now. Just give me a guess.
Oh, I remember that I got changed to a 4-1.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say like I was kind of wondering where you'd ballpark it at, but yes, it did get changed to a 4-1.
And that was the 4/4/4 was while the Dino was a 3/0 as well. Pretty crazy.
Actually. It was.
And I don't think people were onto it. People did not play Mr. Negative still, even though it was
People
insane.
didn't own Mr. Negative. By the time I was like, okay, I was like 300 or 400 collection. No, I was just into pool 3 by the time they nerfed Dino. I was barely out of pool 2. There's no way
that Mr. Negative was the most broken card, and not a lot of people were playing him.
You ended up being right for what it's worth, right? Like because
Sweet.
that by the time Sarah Negative came around, when people actually had Mr. Negative, what we would do, it would just be like you play Mr. Negative, you'd play Sarah, it would be like a 4/4 into a 5/5, and then your whole deck would just be like, in stupid broken Iron Man Mystique stuff, and there was
and even worse,
downside for it.
Your opponent has no idea how strong you are, so you're really good at snapping.
Yes. And you're extremely good at snapping bots because again, they have no idea how good you are.
Yes, always steal 8. All right. Anyways, on this one, so wow, if this were to be good, it would be an astounding amount of like you always got to respect the cards that reduce cards' mana cost. Like I would imagine this is the type of card where people look at this getting released and are like, wow, what a useless card. 2/1, and you're reducing useless cards. So obviously she would fit into a really specific deck, and if that card were good, I'd be like, wow, good job. So I can't imagine the deck, so I'll have to call her bad.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty accurate summary here, where I'm actually surprised you touched on Mr. Negative and then didn't go further with that, because that's where she sees play. You would use her to accelerate your Mr. Negative out, and then in your fail states, you have Iron Man Mystique that's already getting discounted by her, right? So that's actually like the place in which she actually does see play, is mostly with Mr. Negative. Get that Mr. Negative out of turn early because she discounts him.
Well, that's right. You can actually play Iron Man Mystique on 6. It's not bad.
Yeah. So like that's where she tends to see play right now. I will be like straight up and say, it's not really a very good deck, but there are diehards that play it. You will see it. You will see this card at some point when you play the game of Marvel Snap, and you will likely see it accelerate into a Mr. Negative, except for the times when you don't, because the deck doesn't draw its perfect curve all the time. So
it looks like a queen.
So like it's an okay card, but not really. I think this one counts as a win for you. I think I would say that you're basically correct. And also, yes, everyone was just like, what are they doing? Why would they release this card when it came out? But in credit to everyone, it came out as a 3/3, and it was just like, well, then it actually does nothing. Like, as a 3 cost, you're not even accelerating into Mr. Negative a turn early. You're not doing any of the cool stuff. And in credit to everyone, it came out like a week and a half after Loki or something like that. And so everyone's just like, why am I going? Yeah, like, why am I going through all this effort to get a discount when I could just play Loki and get 8 discounts, right? Like, why would I go through all the effort to discount the cards that I have when I could discount all of your cards? I'm going to discount every card in my hand without having to jump through any hoops in deck building, basically.
Man, if I remembered that Mr. Negative was a 4-1, I might have gone the other direction with this and called her good.
That's why I brought it up. I was like, yeah, you know what? Do you want Mr. Negative? I was trying to help. This is the most recent Season Pass card, Miss Marvel. Ongoing, adjacent locations where your cards have unique costs get +5 power.
Ooh, just in time for the movie. Good
Yeah,
timing.
they're good at that.
Adjacent locations where your cards have unique costs have plus
Mhm.
5 power. Pretty interesting. I guess an empty location is counts, right?
Empty location does not count. You don't have cards
Oh,
there. Yeah.
interesting.
Yep.
Adjacent locations where your cards have unique costs have plus 5 power. So one card is good enough.
Correct.
Wow, 415. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, you are reading that right. 415.
Holy cow! This seems insane.
Is that your final answer?
Yeah, fit her in.
Yeah, that is exactly correct. Yes, 415. This is insane. You play a 415. It's very, 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 very good. There are like some things that mess you up, but yeah, this card is generally regarded as like near the high end of season pass power, which is a very high end indeed. Like I would not say I would say that she is extremely powerful. 415, really good numbers to have. And she's a very, very, very strong card. And yes, yeah, you fit her in. You do what you can to make this work because 415 is really good.
Yeah, 415. Holy cow.
I like how the analysis can just be as simple as that. Like, yo, do you see that this card says 4 and then 15? It's like, yeah, yep, that's good. That's exactly how that works. All right, Trump. Last one.
Ooh.
We got Owen Wilson here. Mobius M. Mobius. Your costs can't be increased. Your opponent's cost can't be reduced.
Oh man, that's the hard counter to Mr. Negative.
Yes, absolutely is.
I think if you were playing a Mr. Negative deck and you saw Mobius, you'd be really sad.
That is absolutely correct.
So this is a pretty meta game specific card where you'd want to play him if your opponent was playing a deck with a cost reduction. It doesn't seem like that is a thing. So, probably not good at the moment.
Okay, so this is another one where exactly correct answer, entirely wrong methodology. Because you actually know that it's a thing, because we've talked about how good Loki is, and Loki is a cost reduction card. Like, but
yeah,
the issue that Mobius has is that 3 is just not a slot where you can play tech. It's just not a slot where you can play proactive tech and expect to actually get anywhere. This card came out as a 2/3. It was extremely powerful. Extremely powerful as a 2/3. To the point that they like gave it a different text box because they were like, oh my god, that is too bad for like new players building their collections up with Mr. Negative, with Sarah, stuff like that. But as is, they made it, then they reverted that, they made him a 3/3. And as is, he does absolutely nothing to stop a metagame that is full of the things he should stop. He does absolutely nothing to do it.
Oh, that's pretty surprising. I think I might have gotten tricked even as a 2/3 for that strong there.
At 2/3, he was unbelievable. At 2/3, he was everywhere. He was like, but specifically at 3, there are like a couple of really specific reasons as to why Thanos decks tend to be built around, time stoning stuff. And they have very bad Loki matchups, so they would run him. But at 3, you have to choose between him and time stoning accelerating into like your Professor X or whatever. And so he's not playable there. And that's the major deck that's like, I really need protection against Loki stuff. Darkhawk decks can play him, but as soon as you put him in the deck, you end up losing the mirror to the Darkhawk deck that isn't playing him. And so you're just in these weird spots where he's exactly awkward enough that even though the meta is favorable to him being good, he's just too big of a sacrifice as just a 3/3 to play.
That's pretty interesting. That's a really deep analysis as to why Mobius isn't good enough.
It's something I'm unfortunately very familiar with because it was like a whole controversy over like the change in the text box, all that kind of stuff. So I had to really like do some deep dives into Mobius, much to my own detriment, because now I have all this like arcane knowledge about past metagames that is only applicable in a video like this. Okay, so that's everything I have for you. But I do have one final question, right? You
Yeah.
stopped playing Marvel Snap. Can I ask why?
So I really like Marvel Snap. It's as someone who likes card games and someone who likes poker, it just naturally speaks to me. I really like the concept. So the gameplay is really good. Where I left was because it was kind of for unusual reasons. Like one was just unfortunate that at the time I was just getting matched up against bots, so I didn't actually play
Yeah.
against that many humans. So if I had played against humans more and had the good Marvel Snap
Yeah.
gameplay, I might have been drawn in more. But you can only play against bots for so long.
That is definitely true. As a fellow member of Bot Elo, it was definitely like kind of tough until Conquest came out, and then until they fixed Ladder, and now there's no more bots. So I guess as a follow up, what would it take to get you back? This is where my editor needs to play Baby Come Back over the thing, but the problem is that I'm my own editor, and so that won't happen.
I think one of the it's not necessarily a problem depending on like I really like how they're coming out with cards so often. But well, it's both that and also like is it still the 6,000 token when a new card comes
Yeah.
out?
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
not every card is 6,000,
oh.
but yeah, it's a bunch.
So some new cards don't come out at 6,000.
Yes, some new cards come out at 3,000.
Got it.
It's still a lot.
Yeah, it does seem like a lot to keep up if you want to be on the forefront and just have all the new cards. And I was someone who definitely wanted to play each new card the moment it came out. We're content creators after all. So it seemed expensive, which seems silly when you're a content creator, but like that does seem certainly expensive from the everyman then. It's a cool system where they do decrease over time, and you'll
Oh,
eventually
they
get
got
the
rid of
person.
that. Hold on, there's like
Oh,
a whole bunch of economy stuff that changed actually.
oh,
So like they got rid of the downgrade system where like
okay.
they didn't get rid of it. They put it on pause, and it simply has not been unpaused. They're gonna do an announcement about it soon.
Okay.
But what they did was they introduced like special caches that have like guaranteed series 4 and 5 cards in them. And they're like every like 120 levels on the collection track you get one, I think. And it's the kind of system where like because of the weighting in the caches, the less cards in series 4 and 5 you have, the better it is for you. The more cards in series 4 and 5 you have, the more you're getting like special variants out of those caches than you are the new card. So they weighted it such that even at the top end, you still have like not great odds to get the new card each time you do it, but you are like guaranteed it after a certain amount of times. It sounds very gotcha when I describe it because it kind of is. But it's a little bit like that. I think in terms of the amount of money you need to spend to get a full collection, it is less by some number, but it is not, I would say, a fundamentally like it's not like they like cut it in half or whatever. It's just like less.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, so somewhat what I really like is having a bunch of variety, and when I left off it was because it seemed like I'd figured out the best deck and was just going to stay the best deck for quite some time. And I do like how the meta will shift hopefully with more cards. So that's basically why I left. I enjoy playing a variety of decks, and
Yeah.
possible that they stay the same deck for a long amount of time, given that it is a small amount of cards every so often, some of which change the meta every so often. It's great when they do, but sometimes they don't.
Yeah, like Martyr was the most recent card released. And it's just like you look at that for 2 seconds, you're like, that card is terrible. And then you play it for 2 seconds and you're like, that card is terrible. I'll tell you something. I bought that card for this video. I bought it for this video. I was like, I'm gonna show Trump Martyr. I have not played it at all. I have not played the card. It was entirely for this video. That's the entire purpose of it. So you're welcome. All right. Thank you so much.
The type that would make a video over each new card?
I don't do it when the card is really bad. Like I feel like doing those videos.
What if you're missing something? What if it's secretly good?
Well, then I'd just be wrong on the internet publicly all the time. I can't do video. Hold on now. I can't do card review videos and be wrong. That could not possibly be a vehicle for a successful career as a content creator. That could never happen. No, I genuinely, like, one thing I remember back in the day is how it was so difficult for you when rating cards to know the context of them, right? And so I tend to be very, like, if I know the card is good and I know it's worth recommending, I'll do that. If I know the card is bad and I know it's worth saying don't buy it, I'll do that too. But if it's somewhere in the middle, I don't want to release a video where I'm like, here's how I won with this card, and then it ends up being a bad investment for somebody. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I think that the way Marvel Snap's economy is set up, I don't really have the latitude to be like, yo, this is so sick every time a new card comes out, because if it's not sick, then I'm like, I'm on the hook for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I guess winning with bad new card doesn't have the same feel.
Like, my Martyr video is going to be called, like, something along the lines of, and it'll probably be out by the time this shows up on YouTube, but it's going to be called, like, don't buy Martyr, but if you do, play this.
Sweet.
That's what I have to do. But yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate this. You absolutely knocked it out of the park. Thank you. Do you have any thoughts at the end? You want to say anything about, like, your content? I think most people probably know you, but could help. Maybe?
Well, hello, I'm Trump SC. I like playing cards, Hearthstone, Snap, other stuff. Thanks for having me on, and it's fun talking about basically the history of Snap post my little tournament there.
Yeah, it's been I would say that your tournament was the last, like, that month was the last, like, phenomenal meta we had. That was such a good one. It was a really, really good metagame where, like, things were changing pretty consistently and, like, everything was moving. And then in October, the season pass card, or no. Was it October? Yeah, I think it was October. The season pass card was Loki. And it was that's when the dark times started. That's how it went.
That's when I hate it, when everyone's playing the same deck. And
September
I have to be like, I'm like, oh, I want to play something that counters that deck, but no, I have to play that deck. Boo.
Yeah, it's kind of exactly that right now, unfortunately. Hopefully there'll be some changes, though. There are some balance patches looming for that. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And everyone watching, I'll see you in the next one.